Hello there, good evening. Welcome to another Halloween night with Rick and Mandy's Misadventures. Just myself tonight. Now, October, of course, isn't all just about Halloween. There are some important historical dates, and of course, there's some birthdays. My son George is born in October, and so is Mandy's daughter Louisa. They'll both have their birthdays in October. And today, the 2nd of October, one of my historical heroes, is the birthday of Richard III. He was born in 1452 at Fotheringay Castle. Now, Mandy and I haven't been down to Fotheringay, that's in Northamptonshire, but we have been to Middleham Castle, which is where Richard sort of learnt his trade of being a knight and how to, basically the sort of how they're brought up and how to be royal, I suppose, and both helped by Richard Neville, who of course is known to history as Oric the Kingmaker. He was created Duke of Gloucester in 1461. He's only about 9 years old, and he then obviously went on later to marry Anne Neville, who was the wife of Henry VI's son Edward. Obviously she was his widow when he was killed. Obviously, as we know, he died 22nd of August 1485 at the Battle of Bosworth. His body was then taken to Greyfriars in Leicester, and he was just buried rather unceremoniously there. Now, it had been rumoured for many years that his body had been thrown into the river certainly during the Reformation years. So it was rather unknown if he was still actually buried at the Greyfriars Priory. Of course, that led to eventually his discovery of his body and his remains in 2012 by the, I think it was Leicester University, conducted the search. They found him, and he became obviously known then as the King in the Car Park. Priory had long gone, some local council offices had been put there, and he was found under a parking space which, funnily enough, did have an R printed on it, so maybe there might have been some sort of secret knowledge that he may still have been there. Obviously his bones were carbon dated, and it was discovered that it was the actual body of Richard III. He was then later reinterred, but at Leicester Cathedral, or is it? Yeah, Leicester Cathedral, in 2015. I have been there myself. I have actually been to see his grave, and I think I went with my parents, and obviously George was with me. We went for a couple of days to Leicester, and there saw his final resting place. Now, as we know, Richard is more known as Shakespeare's villain, probably his greatest villain. His schemes and his conniving and his way to get to the top, to be King of England. And history is rather skewed over on what he was really like. And of course, because of certain people before William Shakespeare obviously wrote about the king in obviously not a very good light, because obviously they were all Tudor propaganda, and therefore they could say what they wanted about him. Obviously making him out to be a hunchback, being a tyrant king. He killed his own nephews so we could get there. The Princes in the Tower, of course, are well known. Two boys, the future Edward and future King Edward and the future Prince Richard, Duke of York, but they were both obviously, they just disappeared. We don't know what happened to them. There is obviously more information out there, you can look that up. A lady, Philippa Langley, she's the one who actually conducted the search for Richard originally, and therefore she has also obviously looked into the actual disappearance of the princes in the tower. There was a couple of people. Perkin Warbeck was one of the most famous ones, where he said he was Richard, the Duke of York. He wasn't the actual heir to the throne. He was just his brother. But he said no, he'd survived, and he came back to claim what was rightfully his. Funnily enough, Henry VII actually did take it very seriously, and that's why he actually had Perkin put to death eventually. When I was young, my mum and dad took me to the Palace Theatre in Manchester, where we saw Derek Jacobi in the lead role of Richard III, and I was just spellbound by it. I think we got a royal box. I think mum and dad thought I'd just fall asleep, but I just sat and watched the whole thing. I was absolutely just in awe of it, and I think to this day I still wish I'd been an actor and actually done that kind of thing, which I just obviously was just enthralled by. And of course we went actually to Bosworth Field one year for what they do reenactments of the Battle of Bosworth, which was again just brilliant. It really was. I'd like to go again. It's just getting down there and all that thing, but that's for the future. Hopefully Mandy and I can do that. And yeah, so I'd just like to wish a heavenly happy birthday to King Richard III, who was not the evil tyrant Mr. Shakespeare made him out to be, and may he rest in peace. And now, something a little special. Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York, and all the clouds that lured upon our house, in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monument, our stern alarm changed to merry meeting, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war has smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasings of a lute. But I, but not shaped for such sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking-glass. I, that am rudely stamped, and want love's majesty, to strut before a wanton ambling nymph. I, that am curtailed of the fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, set before my time, and into this breathing world scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfashionable, dogs bark at me as I hold by. Why I, in this weak piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, unless to see my shadow in the sun. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover, to entertain these farewell spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain, and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I laid, inductions dangerous, by drunken prophecies, libels, and dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate, the one against the other. And if King Edward be as true and just as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, this day should Clarence closely be mewed up about a prophecy that says that G of Edward's heirs the murderer will be. Dive down, defaults. Here comes Clarence now.